Greg Ehrenberg here with Adam Scherer, and oh boy, do we have a lengthy version of the NBA Injury Report. Really, this could almost be called just the health and safety protocol show at this point. This is a totally ridiculous NBA slate, and usually I'm trying to pick and choose the most important injury listings for us to go over, and there's so many of them, so it's probably going to be a couple minutes longer than usual. Guys, do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'm not even going to say if players get ruled out. When players get ruled out that are not listed or we don't talk about on the injury report, leave a comment below, ask a question. I'll come back. I've been trying to circle back and answer those. This is going to be crazy. I assume some of these games are going to get canceled too. And we've got some news of players that are going to be really key that are going to matter. And then lesser important players that still play pivotal roles. Guys like Jordan Poole being out. We've got Giannis and Bobby Portis out. So in the nature of trying to tease this and build up towards the end of the show, I'm going to do the Bucks news last with Giannis being out. Because that's how you get people to stick around to the end. You do a little tease in the radio world. But here's where we're going to start. Clint Capela, he's listed as questionable, non-COVID illness, so we don't have to worry about him potentially creating any issues for other players on the Hawks. If Clint Capela does not play today, Adam, who's going to benefit the most from Atlanta?
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty interesting one where I'm not super confident in what they would do. Okongwu is, I believe, listed as probable, but they said he'd be on a minutes limit if he does play. Normally, I would say I think there's a good chance that John Collins starts at the 5 and that you just get like Cam Reddish or Gallinari into the starting lineup. But they are going up against Nikola Jokic, so I wouldn't be shocked if they try and put Gorgie Jang out there for as many minutes as he can give them just to have a bigger body. Basically, whoever starts at the 5 looks better than they would otherwise. If it's Gorgie Jang, then clearly he looks better because otherwise he probably plays 0 minutes. But if it's Collins, he also looks better just because he's more productive when he's not playing alongside Capela.
All right, so let's move on over to Orlando Magic now. And if I'm being honest, I don't even think this game plays. But just in the nature of doing due diligence, I think we have to talk about it because there's a potential for so much value on Orlando today. Currently listed as questionable: Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Gary Harris, players who are currently listed as out. And I'll just go through everybody, including guys who've been out for an extended period of time like Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz, Michael Carter-Williams, Terrence Ross, Etuan Moore, Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs, RJ Hampton, Iggy Brazdeikis. As a result, we currently only have 8 active players for the Magic. 3 of them are listed as questionable. Unless I'm missing something here, if they just sign somebody to a 10-day contract, if any of Harris, Bamba, or Cole Anthony get ruled out, they have to cancel this game. They just wouldn't have enough players to field an active team, such as the NBA in this current time. But let's say that these guys all get ruled as active, which maybe not the most likely scenario, but who would stand out the most as a value play from Orlando?
Anybody playing, really. I mean, Okeke at 3,600, I think you would be pretty confident that he's going to play a lot of minutes. Like, all these guys have to play a lot, but Cole Anthony, you would assume, plays a ton. Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Bamba, you assume, play as much as they can. Franz Wagner, I feel really confident, plays a ton. Those guys are all still relatively expensive. When you look to the other pieces, though, like Gary Harris has been playing 33, 34 minutes. He's dealing with his hamstring issue. He could play more, but also he just kind of doesn't strike me as somebody that they would want to run into the ground more than they have to. Chuma Okeke would be the cheap guy that I think is likely to just play as many minutes as his body will let him. It makes sense for Orlando to try and develop him. It makes sense, physically that he probably can just play more than Gary Harris. So I think he would be the cheap guy that you look to first, but anybody suiting up for Orlando today is going to offer value.
Yeah, and that is, once again, if that game happens, guys, you really want to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, checking out the deeper dives live before lock later tonight. There's going to be more weird stuff that happens before now and the slate actually starting. There's going to be weird stuff that happens while the slate is actually underway. It's going to be a situation where you really need to be up on top of all of the news that's happening. And one player who's out for the Golden State Warriors, Jordan Poole. We just had the Warriors play against the Knicks. We know about the Knicks COVID breakout. Emmanuel quickly just tested positive. He was playing in that game. I would not be shocked to see more Warriors players ultimately test positive or end up in the health and safety protocols. But for now, we just have Jordan Poole is out. And individually, I don't think he opens up a massive amount of usage, but there is a lot of playing time to be going around here because Jordan Poole has been starting and playing a lot of minutes. Could we see somebody like Damian Lee step up and become a viable value option?
Yeah, I think it's likely that somebody like Lee steps up. You could possibly see more minutes for Gary Payton as well. But at the same time, there's just so much value on this slate that there's more value on Golden State than there was this morning before Poole was ruled out because of guys like Lee and potentially Peyton stepping up. But I still don't think that anybody necessarily steps up to be like a top guy when you compare them across all of the other spots. The other player that I would point to that I'm a little bit more interested in than I would have been before is Andrew Wiggins. I think that with Poole being out, there is some usage to go around. Steph Curry certainly could see a little bit of a bump as well, but typically Curry's going to take what he wants anyway. It's not like he's ever deferring to Jordan Poole. Andrew Wiggins, though, goes from being sort of neck and neck with Poole as the second/third scoring option here to being the pretty clear number two. Whoever starts in place of Poole is going to be a much lower usage player than Poole is. We know Draymond Green is never going to be a high usage guy. Kevon Looney's never going to be a high usage guy. So I think you could see a pretty nice bump in Andrew Wiggins here.
All right, moving through the NBA injury report, and next up we have the Boston Celtics situation. Jabari Parker's out. Who cares? Doesn't matter as much. But the bigger names, Grant Williams, Al Horford, they are both out. Grant Williams individually wouldn't matter a ton, but in some previous games where we've seen Al Horford, Robert Williams be out, we've seen Grant Williams move into the starting lineup and play extended minutes. That is no longer an option for them. So what happens in the Boston front court considering they have these guys out?
Yeah, this is a situation we haven't really seen. Robert Williams, I think, becomes likely to play a good amount of minutes. Obviously he's been up and down in terms of playing time this year, but taking Horford and Grant Williams out really makes the front court thinner. It's also just a difficult situation because they're playing Golden State. So not only are you short these guys in the front court, but you also have to consider that they could just go small. Like you could potentially just get Jason Tatum at the 5 and be running lineups of like Smart, Schroeder, Richardson, Brown, Tatum, something like that would potentially work. So I think that it is a benefit for a $4,800 Williams. He produces much better when Horford's not on the floor, but I think it's also a benefit for Jason Tatum at 9K, who already looked good at 9K on DraftKings, because I think it's likely that you're getting some small ball 5 minutes from Tatum.
All right, the NBA Injury Report is sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. If you guys are unfamiliar with Yahoo, do yourself a favor, sign up using the link in the description box below. Head on over to Yahoo, make a deposit, enter a contest, and get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. But there's more, Adam. We've got even more to talk about in terms of our partnership with Yahoo. They are also running a 12 Days of Christmas bonus here. And if you sign up and you've used the promo code XMIS100 when you make your first deposit, get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit, and check out those 12 days of winning contests they have going over on Yahoo. So you've got that. You get the free $100 that you could get, and then you also get the free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, all stuff that you guys should be taking advantage of. All right, the NBA injury report. We're only about halfway done here. It's never ending. If we wanted to, we can make this thing go 3 hours and talk about each player individually, but we are trying to condense it in some sort of sense. And looking at the Sacramento Kings, we've got Halliburton and Metu. They are both questionable. Players that are in the health and safety protocols and or ruled out. We've got Terrence Davis, Alex Len, Marvin Bagley, De'Aaron Fox, Rashawn Holmes. Now, oddly, even though De'Aaron Fox just tested positive for COVID, the Kings have listed him as doubtful today instead of out. I assume he's not playing, but that aside, we've got all these players out for the Kings, Fox being the big one. Who is going to take the mantle for usage in this offense?
I think that you see a nice bump actually for Davion Mitchell, not only in playing time, but also in usage. He actually, in the minutes, he's played about 275 minutes alongside Tyrese Halliburton without Fox on the floor this season. He actually has the higher usage rate at about 21.5%. So I think you see a bump for him. You should see Buddy Hield just shooting at will. Harrison Barnes probably a little bit more involved offensively as well. Fox's absence is just absolutely huge, though, because it gives the minutes to Davion Mitchell. Mitchell started last game and was probably going to play a lot tonight anyway, but now the minutes are even more secure when you take when you take the Aaron Fox's minutes out. But it also just opens up usage. Hield should get some. Halliburton looks better. Barnes looks better. Mitchell, looks even better without Fox. So really makes anyone capable of handling the ball or shooting the ball that is active for the Kings tonight look good.
All right, now moving on, the Charlotte Hornets, and this is a weird situation because we've got LaMelo. He's been cleared from the health and safety protocols, but he was not fit to play, so they had sent him down to the G League. He's officially listed as questionable to play. We've also got Ish Smith. He's in the G League to work on his conditioning. So if LaMelo plays, I don't really think there's a whole lot to see here from the Hornets, but I'm kind of curious to hear your take on what happens if LaMelo's out. If there's no LaMelo and there's no Ish Smith, does that make somebody appealing to you from the Hornets?
I think the Hornets, kind of even if LaMelo's back, I think the Hornets are mildly interesting in tournaments, not as guys that you should really be building around, but as like a last piece in where you can still get a ceiling at pretty low ownership. If LaMelo's out, it makes them look a little bit better because there's just more usage, more playmaking to go around. But looking at somebody like Miles Bridges, I don't think he's too affected either way. He's going to play a bunch of minutes. He's around, 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy. Terry Rozier is still a little bit cheap. So I think that they're playable regardless, but they do look a little bit better if LaMelo sits. At this point, though, I don't think that there's anybody whose status goes from like unplayable to good play if LaMelo's out because he's been out for so long. This team is essentially priced for him not to play.
Yeah, and all those guys were playing 40 minutes in his absence. So certainly something that we're not going to see replicated now the team is starting to get a little bit more healthier in terms of bodies that are available. Now we move on to the Los Angeles Lakers, who maybe they caught a break by Russell Westbrook getting ruled out for them because this team was really struggling with just their overall chemistry. They're in the playoff picture, but it's been an underwhelming season to the Lakers to this point. They have no Russell Westbrook, no Dwight Howard, no Taylor Horton-Tucker, no Avery Bradley, no Malik Monk. So it's a lot of minutes to go around in the backcourt. It's also a lot of potential usage available for Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So of AD and LeBron, which of them do you think benefit the most? And who's the value play that stands out the most?
I think LeBron benefits the most. Like Davis still looks good, but when you think about what Westbrook does, it's a lot of ball handling. It's he rebounds too, which looks good for Davis, but also you can get more rebounds for LeBron. Should get more assist opportunities. LeBron's played 190 minutes without Westbrook on the floor this year. Has a 41.7% assist percentage, 32% usage rate. I do think keeping an eye on Malik Monk's status is important because he tweeted that he's back, and then like that he's not in protocol, but now he's still listed as out. So I don't really know, but he certainly makes a difference if he is back. If he's out, it just helps to solidify even more the minutes for Austin Reeves, for Wayne Ellington, Rajon Rondo probably plays a role tonight. Isaiah Thomas signed a 10-day contract. It hasn't been determined yet if he's going to be active. So guys like Ellington and Reeves, they're not great fantasy producers, but they're likely to play a lot of minutes tonight. Rajon Rondo is a good fantasy producer. I think his minutes are a little bit more questionable because it's not like he has to play a lot. LeBron is the de facto point guard here. So you could easily just see lineups where it's like, LeBron, Reeves, Ellington, Melo, Jordan, Bazemore, any of those guys just kind of mixed in where LeBron and Davis are just running the show. So Rondo becomes like a high upside, low floor option.
And on the other side of the game, there's also COVID news. Anthony Edwards is out. Taurean Prince is out. Anthony Edwards, the most recent player who is test positive, at least at the time we're recording this. There could be somebody else either test positive as we're doing this or a second after we post this. But as of right now, no Taurean Prince, no Anthony Edwards. Is there a value piece that really stands out here, or is it just going to be more shots that go to guys like D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns?
My expectation is that it's just more shots for those guys. I don't think there's really anybody that's likely to step up into a much bigger role. You could potentially see Malik Beasley. He would be, I guess, where I look next, beyond the main starters. Beasley's been pretty underwhelming this season, but when you take Edwards out, there are plenty of minutes available for somebody like Beasley that can play multiple positions. He's averaged 0.85 DraftKings points per minute without Edwards on the floor this year. So if I were looking for a cheaper piece, I think $4,300 Beasley is where I would look. But also, Russell already looked good on DraftKings at 7,600, likely to play 34 or 35 minutes. Now you take out Anthony Edwards. Russell's at 1.18 DraftKings points per minute without him on the floor this year. Towns in 126 minutes is at 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. He's very difficult to get to from a roster construction standpoint, but he does look better without Anthony Edwards.
All right. Final injury situation to go over. And this is the one I teased at the top and the one that I think is the most, I won't even say most pertinent because there's a lot that really impact the slate. But Giannis being out in a really big way. For me personally, Chris Middleton is currently my favorite overall play on the slate. Here are the total list of players on the injury report from the Milwaukee Bucks. Brook Lopez, he's been out for a while. He remains out. No Giannis, no Semi Ojeleye, no Thanasis Antetokounmpo, no Dante DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo was set to come back, and unfortunately, he tested positive for COVID just as he's coming back. No Bobby Portis, no Wesley Matthews. Chris Middleton just not priced expensive enough on DK or FanDuel. Give me all of him. Do you agree with that? And who else are you looking to get to here?
Yeah, I agree with Middleton. I also think Drew Holiday looks fantastic. They've played 10 games since the start of last season where Giannis has been out and both of Middleton and Holiday have been active. Holiday's averaged 1.26 DraftKings points per minute. Middleton has averaged 1.25. Middleton has about a 30% usage rate. Holiday's around 26.5%. Both guys are underpriced. It's a good matchup against a really bad New Orleans team. So they both look really good. But then there's some other pieces you can get to as well. On DraftKings in particular, DeMarcus Cousins at 3,100 looks like a good value. Don't know how many minutes he's going to play for a couple of reasons. For one, I don't know how many minutes he can play. For two, kind of talking through it with Josh on the strategy show this morning, I think there's a good chance that the Bucks might just say screw it and go with a very, very small lineup here, because even though they're going up against Jonas Valanciunas and Willie Hernangomez, there's no answer. Like, Cousins isn't slowing them down. Mamukelashvili's not slowing them down. The best bet for Milwaukee might just be to run basically 5 wings out there and hope that New Orleans either benches Valanciunas or that they're getting a bunch of wide open threes and that they can, keep up that way. They don't have an answer one way or the other. So I think that's risky for Cousins minutes as well. But at 3,100, if he's out there even for 16, 17 minutes, he's likely to give you a pretty solid performance. But even beyond that, lower owned guys that I think you should feel a little bit less confident in, but Pat Connaughton at 5,200, Grayson Allen at 4,300. These are both guys that are likely to play, well north of 30 minutes, could potentially play 35 if they're playing well. They're not as good as the Holiday or Middleton pieces, but they're also a lot lower owned.
All right. That brings us to the end of this. Guys, sorry this is a little bit longer than usual. We try to keep it condensed for anybody who's just kind of looking for an overall summation of all the injuries, just kind of say like, hey, these are the key injuries. This is how to react to it. But there's nothing we could do. Half the teams in the league are dealing with significant injury/COVID issues. So a little longer than usual. Do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're up to date on all of the latest injury news. It's going to be very important going forward, and in particular today. So good luck.